I wonder how sometimes we value how great someone is based on our projection. Like tonight, I might like the idea of being a diner waitress and having a potential meet cute with a customer who sneaks in a flirt by asking for my burger preference. Next month, I'll be in a completely different life with different friends, job, and apartment, and who knows? Maybe I'd romanticize the idea of having an intelligent significant other who's a physicist, or a poet, or a landscape artist. Because in the end, life is all just one projection after another. And I'd say that is what the movie I'm thinking of ending things is all about: projection. My theory with this movie is that the janitor, Jake, and Lucy are all the same person. I think throughout the entirety of the movie, we've been inside of the janitor's head all along, with him narrating a story of his delusional projections of his younger self and a romance with the girl of his dreams. In this video, I will be sharing 3 points that will support my theory that the janitor, Jake, and Lucy are in fact the same person. So let's get into the points. The story of Lucy's first meeting with Jake was inconsistent, as called out by Jake's father. The concept of misremembering your first meeting might not be really weird on a surface level because this seems normal, right? People forgetting how they meet, it's totally normal. But this isn't a normal story and Charlie Kaufman isn't a normal filmmaker. So I got to thinking, and I remembered that in the book, it explicitly mentioned that the trivia night where they first met did in fact happen, but Jake and Lucy never actually exchanged numbers or talked to each other because Jake did not have the courage to come up to her. So with this in mind, it makes sense to me that Lucy's narration of how they first met was unreliable, because all of it was just a romantic projection of how their meet cute could have been. After receiving so many missed calls, Lucy finally opened up her phone to see a list of missed calls from different names such as Lucy, Louise, and Yvonne, which was all of the alternating names we heard Jake referred Lucy as, and every time she picks up the call, it's always the same voice of a man who we later figure out is the janitor's voice. This insinuates again the inconsistencies of Lucy as an ever-changing character from his fantasies whose name and personalities he can alter until he settles on one that he likes. Lastly, we find out that there are a number of paintings signed by Jake that Lucy found in Jake's parents' basement that were completely identical to the ones she was showing Jake's parents in her phone photo album, insinuating that it was Jake all along who had interest in art in the first place, and Lucy, being a landscape artist, was just one of his projection of a girl of his dreams. The next point is that the janitor keeps on popping out of nowhere in between scenes that it seems as if the editors got two completely different movies mixed up. I was admittedly confused as hell at the first time I watched the movie, but upon rewatching I noticed that his appearances made sense. His earlier appearances showed us scenes of him living alone, mopping the school's floors and eating lunch all by himself. This seems to me establishes his state of disconnection and growing loneliness in life, which hence convinced me to believe that the Jake and Lucy scenes were just his romantic projections of a relationship he desires to compensate for his loneliness. We saw a scene where he was watching a movie about this diner waitress and a man asking her about the Santa Fe burger. First time I watched it, I didn't think much of it, but upon rewatching, this scene is another key to solidify the fact that Lucy is not real. Because at some point during the scene where Jake's parents went through a series of aging and de-aging, Jake reintroduced Lucy to the older and more forgetful version of his father, not only under a different name, Louisa, but also as a diner waitress whom he had claimed that they first met from him asking her about the Santa Fe burger. This adds on to the growing list of inconsistencies for Lucy, who in the beginning was introduced as a physicist. In the school scene when Lucy and the janitor first met, Lucy was asking the janitor if he had seen her boyfriend, to which the janitor replied asking, "What does your boyfriend look like?" But in the scene, he never visibly moved or opened his mouth. Why? Because he never actually muttered the question. Because it was all just in his head, just as Jake and Lucy's stories were just fragments of his imaginations. The dreamy-like sequence of the pair and the janitor ballet dancing across the school hallway and a basketball court is mesmerizing, but also confusing at first glance. Like, why were they dancing? And why did the janitor crash the dance? And why was the male dancer stabbed in the end? I think the entire dance sequence is basically a creative retelling of Jake's projection of how an ideal relationship would develop from a loving couple to a dreamy marriage. That is until his dream and reality blurs into one as the janitor finally showed up to fight and eventually killed Jake's lookalike and thereby bringing him back to reality. As we cut back off to the present time of him merely as a lonely janitor mopping the school floor all by himself. Alright, that's it on my take for the movie. I'm thinking of ending things. And to be honest with you, there are still things that I haven't quite comprehend from this movie. Like, what was the award for? What does the final song mean? And why did it end the way that it did? But I think it wouldn't be a Charlie Kaufman movie if it's not full of vague insinuations and exciting little details. And truly, that's what I enjoy from his craft. My final recommendation before I go is that please turn on the subtitles. I'm telling you, it helps. Trust me, it really helps. Alright, that's it. Hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel if you're feeling generous, but if you don't feel like it, I totally get it. Thanks.